All right, welcome everyone to our Finance Committee meeting for November 16th, 2022. It's about 6:30 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
Mr. Capel,
Here.
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mr. Neff,
Here.
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mr. Martin,
Here.
Mrs. Cooper, here. All here.
All present. Okay, let's go to the minutes for our last meeting last month, October 19th, 2022. Do we have a motion or any changes suggested?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Mayor,
Second?
second by Mr. Grumney. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper, yes.
Minutes passed. All right, let's go right to our new and unfinished business. The first item on the agenda this evening is the facilities planning project update, and I believe Mr. Hennessy has that for us.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just as a reminder, at the last meeting, we talked about a plan for going forward with the updates of the municipal building, the new police department, and we talked a little bit about the service department. Based upon the recommendation and the support of council, we've gone out and gotten pricing to now do the detailed construction drawings and the bid document preparation. And so that's what we'll talk a little bit about tonight. We do have this on the council agenda for action later this evening if you are comfortable with the proposal. So beginning on packet page 7, just want to point you to kind of the details of what is proposed by MS Consultants. As a reminder, they're the group that we had engaged to do the conceptual design work. So if you go down to maybe 2/3 of the way down the page, professional fees and reimbursable expenses, and it lists tasks 1 through 6. The total amount of this proposal is $263,500. As a reminder, at the last meeting, the table that we showed you showed an estimate of design fees to be somewhere in the $270,000 range. So we're very close. But in fairness, this one is slightly higher. It's higher because the 270 included the 30,000 that we had already spent on the conceptual design. So if you're comparing apples to apples, they're at about we would have been at about 240,000. Their proposals of 263,000. So again, relatively close in terms of the overall pricing. The tasks that they've outlined: facilities, 3D scanning, as-built preparation. What they're saying here is that they do need to come in and get detailed sizes on the municipal building primarily. We did not have a detailed plan on that space, so they've got to come in and do scan work to get the spacing exactly. We did have a plan for the Newman building, or will be the new police department. So most of this money is related to the municipal building. The municipal renovations at $95,300. As a reminder, that's basically designing the ground level. And then some very basic planning on the lower level, primarily to open up the center of the space and to just prepare the rest of the lower level for storage. It does not include the restrooms or any additional detail. The police building renovation and a new shed, $133,500. This is basically the entryway, the rear of the building, and the shed, which is basically where the vehicles would be parked under. So that's what's in this particular number.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. That new shed is for new construction. That's a new.
It would be a new structure. Again, we did push back a little bit that the original concept was a higher price than we want to pay. So they know that we're looking at something that's maybe a little bit closer to 100,000 versus the 150,000. But again, there will be, and I should have said this, thank you. So what detailed design means is that they will come back to us with additional or more detailed drawings that ultimately the contractor can use to do the improvements, and that we can use to bid out the project. But they'll also come back essentially with a 60% design version, a 90% design, and then they'll go to the final design phase. So there are 2 more opportunities for us to tweak the designs ever so slightly to kind of get where we ultimately want to be. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, if that shed is starting to come in, maybe in a, higher than that number we had talked about, there will be an opportunity for us to right size it, if you will. Or abandon it if that's what we decide. The maintenance building, we decided we would hold off on that until we did an additional conceptual plan around a second maintenance facility. So there's no cost to do additional design work there yet. Permitting and bidding phase, like I said, they will help us all. This pricing is to release the bids, to respond to questions from contractors, to assist the city in the review of the bids. And they will make a recommendation on who the best contractor is. But again, at the end of the day, that's our decision, not theirs. And then the last task here, the schematic design for the new maintenance facility. So again, this is the second facility we talked about on that vacant land on the south side of Sedgwick, which is across the street from the existing services building. We had asked them to conceptually design something, and we would try to determine whether the more cost-effective approach is to build out the round top building for staff, or whether it's to build it into the second facility. So we'll know that answer. Again, they'll get us to 30% design under this task number 6. So again, there are some additional costs associated with getting the maintenance building, whatever direction we go. But this is what we agreed we would do as sort of as a next step. So all of that, total $263,500. And the other task here that's not included in that, they did say if the city is interested, when we get to the 60% design stage, they would engage a construction company to cost it out for us, just to make sure that we are on pace for a project that's in line with the size that we had talked about at the last meeting. So we had talked about a $4 million program, including acquisition, as opposed to the $5.9 million original proposal that the architect had come in. So if we want to, we can purchase that $12,000 task, just again to make sure we're on pace, or we could select our own contractor to do the costing, or maybe we could use our engineer. So there are other options. This proposal is really just the request for $263,500 to do the, again, detailed design and the preparation of the bid documents. So are there questions of what's being requested?
On the second page there of their letter.
Yep.
Daryl talks about reimbursable expenses are not included and will be billed at 1.1 times per cost. They're talking about printing, reproductions, special materials, photographs, mileage and travel expenses. Is that pretty standard?
I mean, I would say it is, but I also know that we didn't really have much of any of those expenses in the first phase. Now, here we will have to, print out versions of the bid documents and that type of stuff. So, which are expenses maybe that we could incur in-house if we think that the billing got to be too much. But I wouldn't anticipate that this is going to be a lot.
Okay. In task 8, the top of the second page, can you
Yeah,
explain
they
that a little
just
bit
they basically are saying that they're going to take us all the way to the contract selection. That they do. This does not include money to administer the construction project once we engage a contractor. And again, we'll come back and talk about whether we want the architect to play that role, or whether there's another way we want to kind of oversee the construction of the project. So as I said, there's an ordinance on the council agenda this evening. If the committee is comfortable with that, or if council is comfortable with that, they did indicate in this letter that they were ready to go immediately, which is good, because we are trying to get these drawings done and out to bid in the spring of next year, so we can continue to stay on schedule. So I've reinforced that that's our schedule, and they seem to be confident that they can meet that.
seems pretty detailed. I mean, it is in line with that 270,700, as you mentioned earlier. Page 10 is the table under estimated design originally.
Right.
Any other further comments, Mr. Mayor?
No, I appreciate you getting this back to us. Ready to go.
Who's the chief?
We are in a race against the sheriff's department. They're on track to open their new sheriff's building sometime in August. So in order for us to hit all those timelines, we're gonna have to approve this right now.
That's currently under construction though, isn't it?
It is, but we can catch up.
Just put a bigger sign out front.
Yes.
Light it up.
All right, well, if nothing further, we'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Hennessy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All your work in that. Let's go to the, I think I want to skip crack ceiling for the moment, go down to, Dana and have her talk about the 2023 budget revisions. And she has some handouts that you have in front of you.
Yes, thank you. Each of you should have 3 stacks of paper. This one here is going to replace your Exhibit A that's currently in the council packet for this evening. So this will be the Exhibit A that is the revised budget that I'm going to talk through. Just to give you an idea of what these other 2 packets are. These are the same reports that Ms. Belcher put into the Finance Committee packet in the past. However, I've downloaded them into Excel and added some notes on the right-hand side so that we can explain and add some understanding as to why there are variances. So I would like to go through just a little bit of that, not necessarily in detail because it is a lot of information, but I wanted you to at least see that this is something that I plan to do at least quarterly in the future, hopefully monthly, so that we can have visibility of all the spending, where we can potentially save, spend, and just so that you're all aware on where the money's going. So first, I'd like to refer you back to the consolidated budget overview. And just to go through some of the changes that have happened since we last met. We have increased the sewer debt to account for wastewater treatment plant upgrades design payback. That was an amount that was not included originally. It ended up being about an additional $15,000 in the sewer fund. I also increased the council and mayor salaries per ordinance 2022.35, which was approved last meeting. I've increased the pass-through expense for the engineering up to $350,000 for reservoir engineering and service and various other projects that would be passed through. Various increases of appropriations to account for funds that will not be spent in 2022. For example, police cruiser is one of those items. I don't think we're going to get the police cruiser this year. At least it doesn't look as if we will. We're hoping, but chances are, it being the middle of November right now and haven't got word, I wouldn't expect to get an invoice for that until 2023. Since those funds have been appropriated in 2022's budget, they will not be spent. So therefore they will carry over and will need to be reappropriated in the budget. So that's why you will see an extra appropriation amount that looks like you're spending it in 2 years, but it's really just carried over from the prior year into the current year beginning balance. So if that doesn't make sense, I'm more than happy to sit down with you and explain. It's complicated. What else? So I also added various items here, $3,000 for dam safety fixtures, $5,000 for bike racks, an additional $7,500 for utility billing clerk in Q1. Anticipating that we won't get a finance clerk until after that point. But that is on our to-do list early in the year. I've also added $280,000 for Fallen Heroes Phase 3 and Trail Phase 2B. And $15,000 for the Lions building expense to repair the damages. That's just a dump of everything that I've added. Now, I didn't necessarily tell you where exactly those were added into the appropriations, but they are in there and I'm more than happy to walk you through what's changed if you would like me to. But basically we have total appropriations of $12,031,321. And that would give us a projected balance of all funds consolidated of $10,993,050. So that was a very high level overview. If anyone has specific questions, I'm more than happy to go through it.
Always like looking at that bottom line there from left to right. So the high level view. So we're expecting a balance at year end of 14,686,000. And we're expected to bring in anticipated revenue of 7,960,000. So that makes available to us 22,646,000. And you, like you mentioned, you appropriated another 12. Well, we have appropriated total 12,031,000. Projected balance
Yes,
is the difference, 10,993,000.
correct.
Projected end of next year. Okay.
Yes.
So if our expected balance ends 4 million less each year, that means that in 2.5 years, we won't exist as a city anymore.
All things remaining the same, yes, that is actually true, because that's simple math, right?
A very dynamic economy.
Yeah.
environment.
It might-
I'm sorry. That revenue number does not really anticipate any of that impact fee income either at this point, right?
It does not. And furthermore, it doesn't anticipate the, if this building project goes through, the bonding money, that the debt that we would sell and receive funds to pay, it does not, that's not reflected in here as well. So if we went out and sold $4 million in bonds, that $4 million that we sell would be coming into our bank account. That's not reflected in here, although the payment of the annual payments on that is reflected. So I probably should put that, well, I don't want to put that in there because that would inflate the revenues disproportionately. So the payment on that, the expected payment on that is included, which is not, it's probably, I don't know what I put in, maybe 150,000 a year to pay back, which is probably high.
Mhm. Back to that bonding plan. So if I remember correctly, if we hypothetically bond 4 million to service that, from a percentage standpoint, we currently like debt to revenue ratio is like 7%.
Yes.
And if we service the 4 million, our debt ratio goes to service ratio to like 11%.
Yes.
And average cities are around 20 to 22%.
I would say that that's a healthy debt to income ratio. Yes. So even at 11% leverage, it's a very healthy position financially.
That's still less than almost
Yes.
half of what
Yes.
the average is, right?
Correct.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So the 4 million that would be sold or made by the bond sale, you don't want to include that because A, it's not here yet, but B, we haven't incurred the expense, so it would inflate the revenue without incurring the expense. Can you do like an offsetting penalty where you could take the portion of the projected bond and the yearly expense, so it kind of nets out instead of showing? Does that make sense? That eliminating the expense?
Yeah, although the more I think about it, if we receive all that 4 million and then end up spending all of it in 2023, which could happen if the project was completed in 2023, then it would just be a wash at that point. So.
Okay.
There could be some additional money that's kept over from that bond sale that's going to carry over into 2024, but I don't know that it makes sense to really guess at what that amount would be.
Any further comments, remarks? Anyone? Mr. Mayor, anything further?
I don't have anything further.
Anything further, Dana?
Not on the budget, but I do have some items that I'd like to talk through on the revenue and expense.
Mhm. Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. So first, I'm going to pull up the month-to-date, year-to-date revenue report. It's the sheet that has 4 pages and it says revenue at the top. Just want to make sure you're all looking at the same document. Okay. About halfway down, a little more than halfway down the first page, we see interest income. You may recall throughout the year, booking expense into interest income, and that's very counterintuitive. That is because the cost basis of the investment has been booked as opposed to the market, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. The market value has been booked as opposed to the cost basis. With municipal securities, you are not allowed, by the ORC prohibits municipals investing in certain securities that are risky. So basically you can't lose any money on municipal investments. And we've not been losing any money. The accounting that's been happening has been booking it to market, and the market value is very different from the cost basis. So if we look at the Fifth Third investments, the cost basis has always been increasing, even though it's been booked here as a negative. That's because the market value has gone down. Now, that doesn't mean that if we sold or wanted to cash in those, we would lose money. That's not how it works. I'm not an investment person per se, so I only have like a little bit of expertise here. I do expect to have Brian Carter of Fifth Third Investments come in and speak to Finance Committee early in 2023, if that's okay with you all. He's been working in the banking industry for 20 or so years, and he handles Sunbury's investments, and would like to stand in front of Finance Committee and answer any questions and just explain how all of the marketable securities work.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So that being said, with the negative that's been posted into the interest income, I'm planning to adjust that before year end so that we show the actual cost basis, which would be a positive. So. And then feel free to read through this at your leisure. And if you have any questions about the notes I've written, or if you see any blatant increases or variances that are just kind of standing out to you, please let me know, and I'd be more than happy to either look into it or explain what I know.
Here's one question, a couple questions you ask over on the right, the notes side. So, Mayor's Court, less than halfway down in yellow. It looks like there's a difference here of, let's see, estimated revenue 56,000. Should this be reduced? So I think should it be reduced by 40%?
Yeah, and that was a question that I'm going to have to go to defer to the police department on. So bringing in year to date 24,000 is what the Mayor's Court accounts have brought in, and it's been budgeted to bring in 56,000 for the entire year. So yes, as Mr. Go said, 40% under. So is that 56,000 too high for a revenue projection for Mayor's Court income? I know it's difficult because you don't know who's going to break the law from year to year.
Mhm.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times you just have to make a guess, and sometimes you're accurate and other times not so much.
We do a look back like the past 3 to 5 years and say, okay, it's averaged
Yes.
36,000 or what have you. And
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. In fact, I've done that for some of the other lines, as you can see, like for towing revenue directly below. I went back 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. And I think that the $30,000 budget for towing revenue is very high. So that can be reduced. Yeah.
One thing I would say on this year for the, where we're at year to date. With our RTA programs, we've done 2 or 3 officers that about 3 months apiece. Activity's been down with that training. We've sent people to, Alice training. We sent them to, what's the other first one's yeah, CIP. We've had people out getting trained up, and we knew the numbers were going to be down, especially with the FTA stuff. Because those are 3 months each per person. So, I mean, maybe a 20% or 20% reduction might be fair.
You're talking Mayor's Court still?
Yes.
Okay.
We discussed that. We know the numbers are down. We know the traffic stops are down. That's why.
Thank you. I do also want to mention, did you have more? I'm sorry. Okay. I do also want to mention that when you're budgeting for revenues, it's really not that big a deal to over to under budget, because if you receive more funds than you had originally planned, it's a simple transaction in the system, email the county, hey, we have this as our estimated resources instead of X. Usually not a problem at all. More importantly is to get the expenses budgeted appropriately.
Would you like our input before the next finance meeting next month on some of these items?
Yes, absolutely. I don't need it, but if you see something that you'd like to call out, please do. I feel comfortable with this budget, how it sits right now.
Is there an action item to see on this evening's council agenda to
No,
revise
this would
that?
be the
Or
second reading, so no,
that's
no
our second. We have the third one next month. Okay.
right.
All right. I think you had one other.
That's one question, just related to the revenue report for this year. Is the bigs, so we're what, 10 months into the year? I think this is what this report's
Yes.
based off of, showing $12.5 million received revenue this year.
Yes,
And we're forecasting for next year 7.9.
yeah. So we're probably gonna get a lot more than 7.9
Right.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's think about that. Why is it so high?
The $4 million review.
Yeah, sewer fund is down. That's the big difference. Number one.
True. Yep. Yeah, the $4 million is a revenue item in that fund, correct? It's also an expense item from the general fund.
Oh,
but
666,000 on the COVID.
True, yes,
fund.
that too.
We're done there.
Mhm.
Yeah, capital projects was moved. Okay.
Yeah, and that's always something that's kind of confusing. When you have a transfer, for example, that $4 million that was transferred from the general fund to the capital projects fund. The transfer has to be shown as both an expense from the general fund and a revenue into the capital projects fund. So when you look at the consolidated budget, it's a wash. It's an in and an out. Fund-wise, they do both change. And in fund accounting, you do have to show those net changes. But consolidated wise, you're not $4 million, you're not receiving $4 million more, you're just at a net zero.
I have no other questions. Thanks.
Any other question? Any other questions? You had another report, Dana, was that the last one?
That was all I had.
Okay, very good. Let's move on then. I think Mr. Piles has, well, before we do that, the month to date and year to date numbers that Dana has provided to us. Is there anything, any glaring issue there you wanted to point out to us at all? Does anyone have any questions about that?
No.
We talked earlier and everything appears to be where it should be. Okay, very good. Let's go to Mr. Piles. He has the crack sealing equipment proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Ghost. If you go back to starting on page 13 of your packet, you'll see this yellow trailer. Crack sealing, we've talked about it. It's an important and preventative maintenance activity that hasn't been done for many years. It's a way to extend pavement life. And it should be part of our regular preventative maintenance program. This year, we budgeted $25,000 for that. We were not able to get a contractor in because of availabilities. So what we're looking at is bringing that service in-house. Having a crew that would probably be a full-time employee, and then a couple summer helpers to go out and do crack sealing. It's not great rocket science. It's laying a crack sealing material into a crack. So the idea is that we did budget in next year's budget for a crack sealing machine. We've identified the one that's got the box around it, actually had them come on site. Positives about it, it's Ohio made in Sandusky, Ohio, and it's Ohio service through a dealership in Columbus. So we've got a really, and actually one of the salespeople live here in Sunbury. So we've got a ready source of replacement parts if needed for it. Let's see. So if we continue to budget $25,000 a year, in 3 years, we would spend what this piece of equipment will cost us. Now we will have the materials that go into it. We'll have the labor of at least 2 part-time people, summer people, and a full-time person overseeing the crew. But in 4 years, it'll pay itself back. We have the ability to control and do more. We have the ability to even, when we were getting the demo, it was late October, and conceivably it was before leaves. It must have been late September because it was before leaf season. Brad said, well, I could have deployed 2 people or 3 people to go do this, and we could have gotten a few streets today. So at the beginning of the year, we will ask you to have the ability to order that machine. Again, it's in the budget, and that will allow us, hopefully, with supplier issues and delivery issues, have it on site in the spring when we're ready to start deploying people as time allows to do it, and be ready for the summer season where we'll be able to really be able to do it. You can kind of see the list of additions. Page 14 basically is the cost information. We dropped off the spare tire because of proximity. We don't think we're very far away. If we have a tire issue, we'll disconnect it from the truck, have somebody wait, and we'll go get a tire. So we took the tires out. We also deducted, there was an ammo can with spare parts. With the proximity to Columbus, we think we can get spare parts as needed. And even the salesman said, I'm not sure that everything that comes in the ammo can, you'll use it. So the one thing that we did add was a arrow band, so that as people approach it, they know they've got something slow in front of them, and it will direct them on how to safely pass the crew as they work.
So, sorry to interrupt, Mr.
No,
Piles.
you're
So
fine.
I see the original invoice there. It's our estimate $72,727.
Yep.
And then down at the bottom, I see some handwritten notes in blue. The 1,772, you're subtracting out those 3 items you just mentioned.
Correct.
And then you're adding back the arrow band at 2,480.
Yes.
Grand total, new net total estimate, 73,435.
Correct.
Okay.
We buy the material that you use in the machine at the same place, or does it come from somewhere else?
It'll be probably the same place. Yes.
Do we have any idea what an estimated cost of that would be?
That's a good question. We actually have some on a pallet at the wastewater plant right now that was not used years and years ago, that the salesman said, don't put a lot of it in, but at least take 1 bag and see if it's tar. So it should
you can blend the old with the new.
Yeah,
and
it should melt and we
percentage-wise,
should be able to
come
use
out all
it.
right.
Yeah, we'll be able to use it, I think, but I don't have a material cost for you, and I will have that when we go to do the actual, please let us buy this.
You'll be looking for that guidance or authority next month or January?
Technically, since it's in next year's budget, we shouldn't write a purchase order until next year for it, so.
Steve, just quick question. So about the hiring though, so if you hire someone full-time, but you can only do this service probably during non-winter months, what is that person gonna be reassigned to other services?
No, we actually won't hire someone. We'll take someone from our current
Oh,
crew
okay, okay.
and say, your summer role is to help lead this
That
crew of
makes sense.
summer
Okay,
workers.
all right, thank you. I misunderstood that. Thank you.
That's okay. We did this in Wellington. Actually, we had concrete streets there and you have to renew the joints regularly, but it worked pretty well in terms of a trusted full-time employee leading some summer employees
Makes
doing the
sense.
work, so.
And that won't cause us any shortfalls on the streets team while that person's got that additional duty in the summer.
It shouldn't. We've actually still have 2 slated in the budget, 2 other openings, so I think it'll work fine. We're getting bigger mowers and more productive mowers, so cover more ground in less time.
I like this idea.
Sounds favorable. Mr. Mayor, do you have any opinion one way or the other?
Still analyzing the budget. It just doesn't reflect the bond revenue, sorry. And so it doesn't show money coming in. It's showing that we're gonna spend $4 million next year. Maybe you already said that, but.
I did kind of touch on that. $4 million is not expended from the budget, though. I did
Right.
reduce that significantly.
Correct.
So only a portion that we expect to spend paying back that bond.
Right.
Is included.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I have nothing else on the agenda. Any other comments, remarks?
Should buy the crack sealer. Sorry, I'm about a minute late.
I'd be interested to see what the real savings of that are after 3 or 4 years. Obviously, at that point, we're committed. There's no going back. But I'm just curious what we end up saving after a few years doing that.
Well, in addition to the savings is the availability, because if
Yeah.
you have a situation comes up and you can't contract somebody because they're too busy,
Mhm.
we now have the equipment to go out and get the job done.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of that.
And that availability issue is a big issue.
Yeah.
Opportunity cost of
Yeah.
the roads.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything further from anyone else? Motion for adjournment, anyone?
So move.
Mr. Martin,
Second.
second by Mr. Capel. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mr. Neff,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
We are adjourned at 7:08.
Thank you.